The first bird that got me interested in birding was the American robin.
The first bird that got me interested in birding is the acorn woodpecker, also known as the clown of the sky.
The Portland, Alabama was sponsoring a bald eagle viewing trip. And so I went on the trip and saw all of these eagles over at Sophie's Island, flying over at dawn, just big spots in the sky. I was like, I was fascinated, right? Saw that, and then we saw all the other raptors on Sophie's Island. And then at the very end of the trip, these little old ladies had their binoculars spiked on some little birds. I was like, we just got through seeing these big raptors. What are you guys looking at? I said, just little brown birds. Like, no, sir, those aren't just little brown birds. That's a black-capped chickadee and a red-breasted sapsucker. Sapsucker? That's what Granny called Jethro and the Beverly Hillbillies. That's a bird. So I put my binoculars on those little birds, and I could see the diversity and the differences in the colors. And so that is what fascinated me and got me kind of really like hooked on bird watching, because it's just like, wow, I never really noticed that before.
When I was like 6 or 7, I got a big giant field guide to birds of North America for my birthday or for Hanukkah. I don't really remember which. And I carried it with me everywhere, and I just read it cover to cover, and it sparked this like deep, lifelong interest in me. So unfortunately, it wasn't really a bird that I saw in person, but it was just that big golden eagle on the cover of that National Geographic guide that just kind of changed everything for me.
I was about 4 years old, and I loved watching birds, and I was especially impressed with the one that had red in the front. And I was looking for one, and I saw it, and I pointed it out to my mother, and she told me that that bird was called a robin. And up until that moment, for some reason, it hadn't occurred to me that every bird had its own name. I just thought of them all as birds. So after that, it was a very big deal to me to try to learn the names of the different birds.
One of my first nature jobs, there was a huge oak tree outside of the window, and I knew nothing about nature or birds. I grew up in the desert, and so I would just look out the window and notice these woodpeckers, and it was the first bird I was able to pick out because they're so distinct, and just watch them like laugh, and they have like a laughing call, and just be with their community. And I thought it was the funniest, most enlivening bird I've ever seen.
When I first started, I never saw anybody out there that looked like me, out there birding with their binoculars, and I also didn't always feel welcome when I would try to bird with others and join other groups.
One of my first birding experiences was with my dad, and my dad is an immigrant from Mexico, and I saw like this free bird walk in my like the city over, and we kind of lived out in the middle of nowhere. So it was like 45 minutes to get there at super early in the morning, and we're not early birds. And I was like, Dad, I really would love to try this. I'm kind of interested in birds. And so that morning, he gave me my first like field guide, and we went together on this bird walk, and we were very late, of course. And eventually we found the group, and they're all a lot older than us, and had huge like scopes and like big cameras. And I had like borrowed my work's plastic binoculars, and he didn't even have any. And in that moment, my dad and I looked at each other, and we said, like, let's just do our own thing. So it was kind of a subconscious, like, I don't see where we fit here.
I didn't have anybody in my life that was as interested in birds as I was. Like, my family would listen, they would take me birding, they would let me tell them about just like whatever cool bird I saw on the page of my field guide that week. But I didn't really have any friends that were into the same things that I was. So coming to Portland Audubon as a camper was kind of the first time that I really got to be in a space with other people that were as interested in birds as I was.
These days, there are all kinds of groups of people out there birding. There are black birding groups, BIPOC birding groups, and I'm trying to get together, of course, with people of color outdoors, little children that are growing up with their binoculars and their bird books in hand and their little journals. And so now you're seeing more and more kids out there birding, and they take it seriously.
Being able to give people the same community that I received is really nice. And I think that more and more people are starting to pick up birding as a hobby. More and more people are starting to pass that on to others. And I really appreciate that.
Just being a person of color, who I am, how I dress, my swag, all of that stuff. People were like, "You a nerdy bird watcher?" Like, yes, and you need to be a nerdy bird watcher if you knew what was good for you.
I'd say for people who are interested in learning more about birds in their area, there's so many resources and tools now. It's kind of wild. But I would definitely suggest one, I love an old-fashioned book. That's kind of how I started in my journey, was getting a field guide, and I just thought it was the funnest thing to look through at the birds and get familiar with them, and then just going outside and trying to figure things out.
When it comes to learning more about local birds, especially in the Portland area, I do really recommend finding a field guide that's written by somebody local. They're really easy to find. There's a lot of people out here, including people I know personally, who have written Oregon bird field guides.
It doesn't take a lot of money, doesn't take a lot of knowledge. You don't have to go any place really super special to go birding. There's tons of places right in the city of Portland where you can bird.
If you like birds, you're a birder. Kids will come up to me and be like, "Well, I want to be a birder," and they've got like they've just a notebook full of drawings of birds. Like, well, you already are a birder. You already love birds. You're already taking notice of the birds around you. I think that's really all you need.
You just need to get out there and just be patient and just enjoy the environment. So, it doesn't take a lot of resources, just good time and patience.
For me and a lot of other folks that I interact with, it is a time to slow down, even if it's for an hour, and just observe and be curious about the birds around you.